Hey everyone, my name is Nelu. I'm from ExtraHop. I'm going to be talking about how we transitioned from TSLint to ESLint. If you were there about in May, I think, I presented on how we transitioned from JavaScript to strict TypeScript. It was a long journey, a couple of years, and we're still in process. But this will be a similar talk about also how we used some manual process, some automated process in making that transition. Anyone here using TSLint? Cool. Yep. All right. So if yes, my talk is relevant. If no, some parts of my talk will still be relevant. So yeah, so a bit of background. Let me make these bigger on my screen. All right, much better. So yeah, Alex is pretty much our senior lint engineer. He had a passion for high quality code, and he took the lead at adding cool TSLint rules and making our code as good as possible. And he also wrote a script, which I'm going to show in a second, of how to automatically make it easier to add some of those rules. So, when you want to add a TypeScript rule, you're going to get a lot of errors, right? And if you have hundreds of them, it's not going to be worth it to you, maybe to take time from what's valuable for the business just so you can go fix all those errors. So it'd be nice if you can ignore all those errors, just add comments, ignore comments, and then just keep going about the usual business. So the way you do that is you can run TSLint with an output to JSON. And as you can see here, the first line will run it for one file. So you can give it the file. And the second line runs it for, we give it a couple of directories. And then we run the first command for all those files. So Alex wrote this script, which basically, as you can see, it runs that second command. And it gets the JSON output with all the errors. Here, basically, is making a map with the file path and the set of lines where the errors occur. So you may have multiple errors in the file, obviously. And he then takes this map and inserts the disabled comment. So the first line, you see the disabled comment for the next line. And you could have multiple rules being disabled for the same line, obviously. And if it's already some disabled comments on there, then you want to add the new rule as well. But if it's new, then it'll be the bottom case. So that's kind of how the script works. And you should try it. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to add any TSLint rules that you feel like it'd be beneficial. And TSLint rule and ESLint rules often come in packages, like the recommended React package or the recommended core package. And those will be hard to turn on all at once. So you have to see what's in that package and do this process for each rule individually until eventually you can turn on the whole package. So yeah, we went through all this, and Alex kept checking when all the new rule come out and keeping us up to date. We were very happy with our setup, but then this happened. TSLint got deprecated. So yeah, the reason for that, I don't know exactly the reason, but probably ESLint was already huge, and they realized that you could do TypeScript linting with ESLint, so there's no point in having two packages that can do the same thing. So they joined efforts, and yeah, what about all those rules that we invested so much in? And we even had some of our own custom rules. So we decided to start thinking about transitioning but we wanted to go as long as we can with TSLint until we basically have to transition. And we were going that way until this happened. So React put out hooks, and we adopted them as early as we could. We liked hooks a lot. Wrote a couple of our own hooks. And then we saw these lint rules for hooks. We discovered them just a couple days later, but the lint rules are ESLint, right? So that was a bit of a bummer for us because we had the TSLint set up, and now we have to really think what we're going to do about ESLint. So it's time to get ESLint. Just to mention what the rules are, so there's 2 rules for hooks, or at least were back then. One of them will take care of something like this, where if you're returning before your hooks, that's a problem because hooks are functioning on the assumption that they run on each render. So if you return early before the hook, that no guarantees can be made. So I mean, you don't want to add that disable comment if you can avoid it, but that's kind of basically the rules of hooks is the name of that rule, and it covers other violations as well. And the other rule will take care of something like this, where if you have a dependency inside of a hook that is supposed to list an array of dependencies, and you don't list it, that rule is called exhausted depths. So again, you don't want to ignore those things, but in our case, we pretty much had to because we had already used hooks in a couple dozen places at least. So we said, okay, we really gotta get on this ESLint transition, and we saw there's a roadmap for migrating all the TSLint rules to where's the mouse? All the TSLint rules to ESLint equivalents. And as you can see, so there's the legend here. You know, some of them are done, some of them are in ESLint core, some of them differ in implementation, and some of them are not done yet. So quite a few of the ones we cared about were not on this roadmap. So we said, okay, what else should we consider? So we decided to see if we can add ESLint in addition to TSLint, so to run both. So we did that, separate process. But looking at how to do that, we didn't spend an infinite amount of time on this, but we were running types. Sorry, my presentation is not back on. Okay, there we go. So we decided to run them both in separate processes. And TSLint was run through fork TS checker webpack plugin, which basically forks this linting process separately so that it can run in parallel with the rest of the build. And there's a setting for what linter you want to use. So we had that TSLint running through this plugin. And then for ESLint, I saw that you can use ESLint loader. So TSLint still remained our main linter. So basically, from a chunk from our webpack, so we have fork TS checker webpack plugin was still using TSLint, but then we added for all the. So you see the list of our loaders for TypeScript files. We just added this extra one, ESLint loader. So all was good except one thing. Because we use this cache loader, which gives us a bit of shorter build time, it was not working well with ESLint. So we kept using it, but basically ESLint loader only ran reliably on the first build, but not on subsequent saving. Because once the files are cached from cache loader, they would, it would just go off of those to check for errors out of the cache, off of the cache files. So we ran with this setup for a while. It was enough because we only added the React hooks ESLint rules. So we only had 2 rules in ESLint, and we were OK with them running only on initial build and then in production once you push. So yeah, that's how we ran until the roadmap was going to advance, and hopefully all our wish list TSLint rules would be developed in ESLint. And then about a month ago, we had some availability for our team, holidays and everything. And we decided, let's see what's happening with the roadmap. Because initially, we added ESLint, I don't know, maybe half a year ago or so. So we're in an audit of basically all of our, I made a list of all of our TSLint rules, and I checked them against the roadmap. And I said which ones are done, which ones are in the core. And we started discussing which ones we want and which ones would be like a deal breaker we can't part with. So as you can see, there's quite a few that were not implemented yet, and it wasn't going to be as nice as we wanted. So as I was trying to find solutions, this library came about in my searches. It's called TypeScript ESLint plugin TSLint. So TypeScript ESLint, the first part before the slash, that's the set of plugins that, or set of NPM packages that make TypeScript work with ESLint. I mean, if you're using ESLint, you know about those packages. But one of their packages is this plugin that what it does is it will run all of your TSLint config as one ESLint rule. So you can create you can make ESLint your main process, and then your entire TSLint configuration becomes one ESLint rule. So that was amazing news for us. We were able to unify both processes into one. So now only we run ESLint, and ESLint, that plugin, is running all our old TSLint rules. If you're making this transition, there's another utility called TSLint to ESLint config. What that does is you just run it on your project, and it will create a config for you automatically. So it will take your TSLint config, and it will generate an ESLint RC JS file, which is basically good to go. And what it will do is, so you can see here, I ran it on our project, and 57 rules it replaced. 6 rules behave differently, and then 21 rules had no equivalence. So it decided to put them to use that plugin to run them. So that's a pretty nice automated tool that you can use. But then I decided to not use it because the equivalents that it was finding were not perfect. And I had to we decided to go rule by rule and double check what's different. And we only transitioned part of our rules, but there's no rush because of this setup. Basically, it runs both fine. So then I went and forked Alex's script and made it work with ESLint rules. So basically, as I'm adding one by one, I pick a rule that I'm transitioning. I change the script to transform all the TypeScript or TSLint comments into ESLint comments because the syntax is a little bit different. It's not as easy as a string replace in your editor. But still, it wasn't bad to change that script. So basically, the main thing that I had to do in the script is to look at the format of the errors. That's what the TSLint errors look like. And then the ESLint errors look like this. You can see they have the source in there as well. The entire file isn't part of the error, and just organized a bit differently. So in my ESLint RC JSON file, as you can see, so you list all your rules, but one of the rules says TSLint JSON. So that's the rule from that package that will run your TSLint rules. So that was our transition process. You guys have any questions? Yeah.
How far away are we now from being completely ESLint?
Yeah, so I would say maybe we've ported over like a fifth of the rules or so. I mean, enough, we kind of got the process down, but then anyone on the team can continue that process. So, excuse me?
Was that 1/5 of the rules?
Yeah.
20%?
Yeah. So,
Got some time to go.
yeah, but.
So many good rules out.
But yeah, the good part is that we can run both right now. So we're not in a big rush. The only rush to do this sooner rather than later is because our build time is a bit longer right now because we're running both. So we've got a better build time, I assume, if we only run ESLint.
Do you have to make any changes to your package JSON for enabling use ESLint versus ESLint?
Yeah, so like as I said, like 6 months ago, we had to install ESLint, obviously. And whenever you install a linter, sometimes you add plugins that contain rules like React linting rules, or I don't know, like some like Airbnb had, for example, TSLint rules, and there's a Microsoft contrib, I think. But yeah, those types of plugins. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. Yeah, and ESLint loader for the initial, but now we don't need that anymore. We removed the ESLint loader because we're using the fork TS. Yeah. Yep.
So you mentioned the package that auto converts a TS config to an ES config,
Yep.
how you were looking at using that, but found that not enough of the rules were directly translating. I noticed in the output that you showed that was like a sample of running that it said like 07 rules behave differently in
Yep.
ESLint. So did you just find that that wasn't exactly an accurate representation of the translation?
Yeah, so it didn't necessarily guess exactly how to change them. So yeah, definitely can save you a lot of time, especially the ones that are already good to go. Like I forgot how many there were, but so it can save you time. But since we have such a big project, I think for us it's worth to. I still use that for reference. That output is still useful to us because I see what it did, and then it saves me time to find some of the equivalents. But I'd rather double check everything.
Okay. How long would you say the process of auditing all of your rules overall took?
So that took me about a day or two of going through all our rules, I think. But I mean, that was the initial pass, seeing which ones are ready and which ones are not. But actually going in detail with each rule, that actually is longer. It can take me like, I'll do like 5 or 6 a day. It depends how big, how many changes there need to happen. So yeah, that's why it's going to be a longer process to do it fully. My initial audit was just to see which ones are ready to go and which ones are not.
Okay.
What's the order of magnitude on the number of like disabled next line?
Yeah, good question. So we have a ton. And every time like you touch a file that has those, like if your diff is going to be in that area, we encourage people to clean it up a bit. But we have, I don't know, I'm sure hundreds at least, if not thousands. Yeah, because you have things like when we were adding TypeScript, for example, we had to add the any thing and the any type, and we had to add like banks for the things that could be undefined or null. And those things we still have quite a few, but we're making good progress in cleaning those up.
We had to start actively stopping ourselves from just rewriting everything, because each time you refactor, you introduce bugs, no matter how careful you are. And so it's an interesting metric when you're wandering through files of like, this file's clean and new, and this file is old and scary and it's full of disabled comments.
Yeah. Yeah, we try to allocate a lot of time to tech debt so that we can clean it up and make it easier for future developers to read the code and understand it. Yep.
Do you have a sense of how the ESLint community is maybe adding priority to creating some of those unimplemented rules or things
for TSLint. Yeah, I feel like they're making progress. I haven't checked it too frequently, obviously, but yeah, people are using TypeScript more and more. So I think all the TSLint rules that they're gonna do are pretty much there. It's just like there's a handful that aren't there, and there's repos that people are tracking, hopefully. So yeah, there's still a handful, I think, that aren't there yet, but I'm hoping that they'll be, you know. So it's not the core of the TSLint. It's all the extras that were contributed by specific companies. Those aren't all there yet, but yeah, with this plugin basically that I mentioned, you can still run those TSLint rules. So yeah.
Totally unrelated question.
Uh-huh.
Do you or does anyone maybe here have any understanding of what it looks like to implement one of these rules in item system? How possible it can be to write it down like ASC transforms or like something?
Yeah.
I've written plugins for error prone in Java and things like that. I don't know what this is at all.
Yeah. So we can do a talk probably one time about like writing your own custom rules. It's actually quite easy. Well, it depends what you're trying to go for, right? We have a custom rule that we use to order our imports. So you know how like you may have like third party, like we like to have our third party imports at the top, and then like your TypeScript next, and then your CSS third, and like having a white space in between. So that rule, again, it didn't seem like it was too bad, but like, yeah, and alphabetize as well, yes.
Alex is also giving me an opportunity to talk about some of our custom rules during his talk because he can't live without it.
Yeah, you should do it.
Sneak preview.
Yeah, and also if you check out the talk Alex Birmingham did, I think last meetup was about Morph, which is a utility, or it's a package that lets you change your code and move things around and find errors that you care about and like change the syntax and everything. Cool.
One more. So we're kind of in a unique spot in our project where I think we've been coding for about a month, and so I added ESLint to our project maybe last week, and I'm wondering if you have any advice for how to start out.
Mhm.
Start over.
I would start, it depends how big your project is. Is it like a pretty new project?
It's really new.
Okay, so in that case, I would try to add the recommended packages. So like if you are using React,
Yeah.
so you can add the ESLint core recommendation, like I don't know how many rules will be in there, and then add all the recommended React. And those will probably include the hooks rules as well. And then fix any violations that you see. There may be a lot, obviously. But if that's too much, then you can try to go rule by rule and then still shoot for enabling those as soon as possible before your code base grows. But if it's already a big code base, you can just use this process of automatically adding ignore comments. Yep.
Could we maybe look at publishing our set of rules, like as a recommendation, or just to like FYI, this is what we use?
Yeah.
Aren't they all just disabled?
Yeah.
Only the old files.
Yeah, well, they're disabled for old code, but any new code we write, obviously, it's going to be really clean. Yeah, so that's a good idea. We should publish as much as we can. I mean, we don't have that much added, but some of the custom rules that we have, at least the imports one, I think that could be nice. And what else do we have there that's... Oh. Yeah, there you go. Some rules you can have fixers, and then you don't have to use the comments to ignore. So
With
those are
auto
the best.
fixers, the goal is that you can just smash the keyboard and it'll turn into beautiful code.
Some auto fixers, you don't want to, well, they're not perfect. So like the React rules that I showed have auto fixers. At least the dependency one has an auto fixer that will like remove the dependencies that are not needed and add the ones that you need. But it can break your code if you didn't write it like that the first time. So that's why I didn't use the auto fixer for it. The auto fixer is good when you're actually writing a new use of a hook. because then you can spot the issue right away, but not for the old code. Cool. Thank you, guys.